Hello?
Hi, everyone. The webinar will begin shortly. We're still waiting for a couple of speakers and maybe more participants. Thank you.
Um, good evening, everyone. Can you listen to me? Yes.
Yeah, hello.
Can you listen to me?
Very well.
Hello. Hello. Okay,
Good
it's 7 p.m. now. If the ambassador agrees, I would like to wait, Ambassador, some 5 more minutes until we have, or do we have all of the speakers here? We're still waiting for Mr. Wibowo.
Agreed,
Yes.
Lindolfo. Let's wait a little bit longer.
Okay. I will meet everybody.
Good evening from Jakarta, ladies and gentlemen.
Selamat malam, good morning.
Good evening.
Selamat malam. Good evening.
Good morning from Brazil.
Very good morning.
Allahumma wa bihamdik.
Okay, can you listen to me? Good evening, everyone.
Good,
Yeah, good morning.
good evening. Good evening,
Good
Adolfo.
evening, everyone. Good
Good
morning,
evening.
Alexandre. Greetings. I would like to welcome you all to today's webinar, the title of which is The Role of Science and Technology in the Brazilian Agricultural Miracle, an intersection between agricultural technology and biofuel development. My name is Lindolfo Cademartori, and I am the head of the Science and Technology and Trade Promotion Offices at the Embassy of Brazil in Jakarta. I'm very excited to be your host here tonight. And first, of course, I would like to greet the ambassador, Ambassador Jorge Prata, the ambassador of Brazil to the Republic of Indonesia. I would like to greet our panelists, Mr. Alexandre Alonso Alves, Mr. Muraza. Mr. Alexandre Alonso Alves, he's the General Head of Agroenergy at Embrapa, which is the Brazilian Agricultural Research Corporation. Mr. Muraza, the Senior Vice President of Technology Innovation at PT Pertamina, and Mr. Wibowo, who is the Director of Bioenergy at the Indonesian Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to all of you for taking the time to join us today, and your participation is greatly appreciated. And we are so glad that you could be here with us today. After this brief introduction, I would like to invite Ambassador Jorge Prata to convey the opening remarks of the webinar as our host tonight. Ambassador, please, you have the floor.
Esteemed Mr. Wibowo, Director of Bioenergy of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources of the Republic of Indonesia, esteemed Mr. Muraza, Senior Vice President of Technology Innovation at PT Pertamina, esteemed Mr. Alexandre Alonso Alves, General Manager of Agroenergy at the Brazilian Agricultural Research Corporation, Embrapa, distinguished participants of the seminar, good evening for those who are in Indonesia, good morning for those who are in Brazil. I'm very happy to open this webinar on the role of science and technology in what we call the Brazilian agriculture miracle. I believe it is fair to say that the conversion of Brazil in only 50 years from a large food importer to the largest food exporter in the world was my country's most prominent technological feat to date. This is the first webinar organized by the Science and Technology sector of the Embassy, and I wish to thank and congratulate my team on this effort. I consider a good example of the dialogue Brazil and Indonesia can establish in this area. In line with Brazil's vocation for generosity, cooperation, and constructive relationships, I also believe it is important to share our experience with nations striving to become self-sufficient in food production, as it is the case of Indonesia. In this light, our discussions will seek to explore how technological innovation has contributed to Brazil's agricultural success. Our aim is to discuss with our Indonesian friends some experiences that they might find useful in their journey. Our approach will be based on understanding how the integration of biofuel innovation with agriculture can help both public and private stakeholders in Indonesia to identify strategies capable of modernizing their own agricultural sector and enhance sustainability. Last but not least, our conversation can help strengthen Indonesian long-term energy and food security. As I see it, this webinar also comprises an opportunity for Brazilian and Indonesian experts to share lessons learned, thereby fostering collaboration and knowledge exchange between both countries. As many of you may be aware, technological advancements in agriculture and biofuel production played a crucial role in Brazil's transformation into one of the world's largest agricultural powerhouses. My country has a long-standing experience with the production of sugarcane ethanol. The origins of our ethanol program date back to the 1970s, when it was first conceived to mitigate the energy crisis of that period. Since then, innovations in soil management, crop adaptation, and mechanization, combined with strong government support and research investments, have enabled Brazil to maximize productivity even in previously unproductive lands. By advancing biofuel technology, chiefly second-generation biofuels that utilize non-food biomass, Brazil has enhanced resource efficiency, reduced agricultural waste, and strengthened the sustainability of its farming industry. In a nutshell, these innovations have not only improved energy security, but also contribute to the overall growth of Brazil's economy. Finally, I want to point out that it is impossible to understand the Brazilian agriculture miracle without taking into account the valuable role played by Embrapa, the Brazilian Agriculture Research Corporation. Founded in 1973, it was instrumental in developing the technologies that made our journey possible and successful. I have therefore great satisfaction in welcoming Mr. Alexandre Alonso Alves, Embrapa's General Manager of Agroenergy. I also welcome Mr. Eddie Wibowo, Director of Bioenergy of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources of the Republic of Indonesia, and Mr. Oki Muraza, Senior Vice President of Technology Innovation at Pertamina. I'm absolutely confident that the three of you will brighten our perspective on the subject of this webinar. Thank you all very much, and I wish you good and productive discussions.
We're not hearing.
Yes, I forgot opening the microphone. I would like to thank you, Ambassador Jorge Prata, for your opening remarks. This webinar was only possible because of your guidance and support. Thank you very much for it. I would like to, before opening the floor to our panelists, I would like to briefly explain some of this would be like some rules of procedure, given that we are in a virtual conference room. There are some rules of procedure that, should we observe them, it will make it better for everyone. It regards mostly things like, please turn off your microphones throughout the webinar so as not to interfere with the audio during the session. Please use the chat or the Q&A feature to ask any questions you may have during the webinar, which you can find at the top of your screen. Our panelists will hopefully answer them at the end of the webinar, and we kindly ask that all questions be submitted in writing rather than via audio. Please keep all questions and comments relevant to the topic at hand, and do not forget to mention the name of the panelist your question is addressed to. And finally, please note that today's webinar is being recorded for future reference. Our session today will last approximately 2 hours, starting with and it will comprise of 3 presentations by our expert panelists. Well, without further ado, I would like to move on to our first panelist, Mr. Alexandre Alonso Alves, who I will reiterate, he's the general manager of Agroenergy at Embrapa, the Brazilian Agricultural Research Corporation. Mr. Alves, if you would be so kind, please to share us some insights on Brazil's agricultural transformation and the impact of biofuel innovation on agriculture. Thank you. Please, you have the floor.
Yeah, sure. Good evening to everyone. Good morning to people in Brazil. First of all, I'd like to thank the invitation of the Brazilian Embassy and greet the ambassador. It's my pleasure to be here sharing a little bit of the experience that we have here in Brazil with biofuels. I think it's a topic of great attention nowadays, so it's my pleasure to be here. I also would like to thank Lindolfo and Bruno, which made possible my participation here. And my objective here is to bring some insights. I will not, of course, want to lecture anyone in terms of the technology itself. I just want to give a brief overview of the Brazilian agriculture and how it intersects with the biofuel development. I have a few slides I think I can share with you. Is that okay for you? Yeah, sure.
Please do share with us.
Yeah, just trying to make it work here. Are you seeing the presentation there? Yep. I'm not hearing and seeing you.
Yes, we can see it.
Oh, sure, because I can't see anyone. So my idea here is to share a little bit of insights about the role of science and technology in the Brazilian agriculture, and also highlight the intersection between agriculture, technology, and biofuel development. As already mentioned, I'm the General Director of Embrapa Agroenergy, which is one of the 43 research centers that we have here at Embrapa. So about the webinar context, I would like to go through this if the time works for me, and I will cover a little bit of ground here. So I'll start with the agriculture, tell you a little bit about how science shaped Brazilian agriculture, how biofuels are being developed in Brazil over the last few decades, talk a little bit about second generation biofuels, which I think is one of the topics of great interest here. Talk a little bit about advanced biofuels, which I think is the next frontier for agriculture-based energy production. And finally, I will go through some of the impacts of the biofuels on agriculture itself and sustainability, and talk a little bit about the potential for partnerships and technology transfer between Brazil and Indonesia, which I understand also has a very large program for biofuels, biodiesel especially. So I think it will work just fine if we can discover some points of collaboration here. Talking about the Brazilian agriculture evolution, I like very much this graphic. It pretty much shows about the area of the Brazilian agriculture over the last few decades, as well as the production itself. As you can see, until the late 1980s, or especially in the beginning of the 1990s, the Brazilian production was itself kind of stagnated. But since then, we have been increasing the production of a lot of genres for food in Brazil. And until the 70s, as the ambassador already said, Brazil was an importer of food. And in the last 5 decades, its production increased by more than 300%, while the land use only marginally increased. So if you see here in blue, it's shown the production about the Brazilian agriculture. Of course, this graphic, it's not well updated, but if you keep on the progression, you see that this will be kind of like here. And the area itself shown here in red, it only increased by 30%. So the production itself increased 10 times the area, which means that we achieved this increase in production basically by using new technologies that allow us to use more efficiently the resources that we had. The Brazilian agriculture is quite diverse. This graphic here just shows you a little bit of what kind of species we are cropping here in Brazil. Nowadays, Brazilian agriculture is based on more than 300 species, which produce over 350 products that are commercialized with more than 200 markets in the world. So you see that Brazil is a big player in crop production, grains, especially soybeans, maize, and other crops there. But we also produce a lot of vegetable, fruits, dairy products, and meats of various kinds. So the Brazilian agriculture is not only large, but it's quite diverse. If you look at the country, in Brazil is a quite large country. The landscape of the Brazilian agriculture will shift a little bit depending on the region that you are. Sometimes it's a great, very large areas where people are producing mainly soybean, and sometimes there are small farmer that are producing mainly vegetables, fruits, and other kinds of foods there. And of course, in Brazil, there's also a very large diversity when you think about the profile of the farmers here. So we have in Brazil approximately 4 million smallholder farmers, especially in the northeast of the country. These small farmers, producers, are of course responsible for the production of a great deal of the food that the Brazilian people are consuming. And of course, when you go to the center of the country, especially in the Cerrado region, you see that the farmers there are large producers, producing especially commodities like soybean or maize. So Brazilian agriculture is not only large, it's quite diverse, and the landscape itself is quite different depending on the region that you are. I'd like to show this a little bit because the Brazilian agriculture miracle that we're talking here, it did not happen over the course of just a few years. It's a process that has been growing since the late 70s, as the ambassador already said. So I always like to say that the Brazilian agriculture revolution likely has 3 or 4 main phases. Of course, the first phase of the Brazilian agriculture miracle was the expansion itself. Initially, the Brazilian agriculture was mainly concentrated in the south of the country. And then towards the late of the 1970s, we began to work on other areas, especially more in the center of the country, which is the Cerrado region, which is kind of a savanna-like biome. So that allows us to expand in terms of area, the Brazilian agriculture. And of course, the second phase was a phase that we call the competitivity phase. We had to develop new technologies that allowed the production to increase on those new areas. So we had to develop tropical-based solutions for the Brazilian agriculture. And nowadays we are experiencing a new phase of the Brazilian agriculture that we've been calling the intensification. How can we produce more in the same unity of land, in the same amount of time, using the resources that we have? We have some pillars, of course, of the agricultural transformation in Brazil, and mainly we can attribute that to the development of science based solutions for the Brazilian agriculture. So when we think about contributions of agriculture R&D, we have the three main pillars, which is the transformation of acid poor soil into fertile land, especially those new lands that we started using on the late 1970s. They were very poor, so we had to develop technology to kind of correct the soil. The tropicalization of some crops and animal production systems, mainly develop new plant varieties and cultivars that could cope with the new environment, and also develop new conservation practices in managing agricultural risks. So, we believe that the present future will evolve into a fourth phase that we are calling this systemic multifunctional agriculture, where we're going to produce not only large amounts of food, energy, fiber, but also multiple bioproducts based on the Brazilian agriculture. So I would like to also show you that, because when we talk about the mighty of the Brazilian agriculture, sometimes sustainability is an issue that people are a little bit concerned about. So this image here just shows you land use here in Brazil. So it's shown right here. I think this circle is a little bit out of place here, but this is the area that we use as the area to produce grains, fruits, forests. It's about 16 million hectares of productive area. So you see here that it's just a small fraction of the Brazilian territory. Of course, we have a large amount of pasture, degraded pastures that can be used with the right technology or be reincorporated into production systems. So the productive area that we use for the agriculture accounts for about 30%, a little bit less, of the country. So this is a small number, especially compared with other countries, more developed countries. If you look at the space that some European countries use for its agriculture, it's quite more than 30%. And this other graphic here just shows you a little bit of the land use from another perspective. So you see that in yellow, here's the area used for pasture, and this more dark yellow here is the area used for other kinds of grassland formation, and here is the agriculture. So you see that 66% of the territory here in Brazil is covered with native vegetation. So we can still expand our production without pressuring our biomes and natures. And of course, we are going to still be developing new technologies so we can use the areas that are already into the production systems. And just showing you a little bit of how the science shaped the Brazilian agriculture. I show you these key pillars, and the first of them is actually this transformation of acid and poor soils into fertile land. Of course, most of the Brazilian territory are located in the tropical belt of the world, and tropical soils are naturally poor. That's something that people sometimes do not understand. People used to think that the Brazilian soil and climate and everything was great for the agriculture as itself. But the reality is that most of our soils are acid and are very poor in terms of nutrients. So in red there, we show some of those types of soils, which kind of is the same in other tropical areas, especially Africa. So we had to build soil fertility. So we had to develop technologies that could allow us to use the areas with natural poor fertile soils. So this was one of the key technologies that Embrapa was involved in its early beginnings. So in order to produce vast quantities of grains, especially in the Cerrado regions, our scientists developed an array of technologies to correct soil fertility, especially acidity, and also to supply the nutrients in the quantity and on the right time for the plant development. Of course, it didn't resulted alone in a better productivity if we didn't have the right plant variety. So these images that you're seeing are showing a little bit about the tropicalization of soybeans in the 60s, and especially in the 70s. That's shown in orange there, where was the area of where soybeans were produced, mainly because we were using plant varieties that were not specifically created for other kind of environments. And then we had to adapt or tropicalize the soybean varieties, and also maize and other crops to do more this area here. So the plant variety itself developed mainly for temperate regions. It performed poorly in the heat and the rainy conditions. So our scientists here at Embrapa developed through breeding techniques new tropicalized varieties, which were resistant to pests, disease, which were insensible to heat, that could also be grown on those kind of soils that we had here in Brazil. And of course, in terms of new conservative practice, we had to develop a no-till production system that allowed crops to be seeded directly into straw without the need to grid the soil. Of course, this is a great thing because it saves water and increase carbon in the soil, also allowing for beneficial microbes to flourish. So this is a technology that's nowadays being very important, especially in terms of carbon allocation in the soil, storage in the soil. So that was one of the chief technologies. But perhaps the most innovative technology that the Brazilian scientists developed over in the last couple of decades were the bioinputs, especially biological nitrogen fixation. So in every field that is producing soybean here in Brazil, there's no need to fertilize it with nitrogen because we develop a bioinput that once applied to the soybean plants allows the plants itself through a microbe interaction to fix the nitrogen from the air. So this saves, of course, a lot of money for the Brazilian farmers, and also helps in terms of carbon emissions of our agriculture. And over the last few years, we've been developing some integration of livestock, crops, and forests. It's a newly developed technology that can be used to intensify the whole production systems. So what I'm saying about this, that we want to produce more products in the same amount of land and time. And as the ambassador already said, Embrapa was instrumental in that Brazilian transformation of its agriculture. So we are a network of research unities. Nowadays, we have 43 research unities or centers. Embrapa Agroenergy, which is the unity that I direct, is one of them, and we are concentrated mainly on biofuel production and other systems to use agricultural products and residuals to produce bioproducts. So Embrapa is now 50 years old, and we still have a lot to do to help shape the Brazilian agriculture. So the impact of all this is more productivity. Together, these and other technologies that were rapidly adopted Brazilian agricultures allow us to increase the production, and mainly by the increase of yield and productivity. So we do not expand a lot of our area. And of course, that had an impact into turning Brazil from a larger importer into one of the largest producers and exporters of agricultural-based products, which also benefits GDP, which rapidly increased in Brazil, and also had an impact in the price of the basic basket, which is the group of products that are mainly used for the Brazilian food, as Brazilian food. So it dropped by more than 50% over the last decades, allowing population to have access to high quality foods. And of course, I think there's a lot of opportunities for countries like Indonesia and other countries that are located in the tropical belt to improve its agriculture based on the Brazilian model. And of course, I think we also can learn from our partners and from other countries with their experience. So I'm very excited to hear a little bit about your experiences too. Well, talking about the intersection of biofuels with agriculture in Brazil, biofuels, of course, is one of the great things that we have here in Brazil. Brazil is one of the leading countries in the production and use of bioenergy, and particularly biofuels. There are a number of biofuels that are being produced in the country, and these biofuels are becoming even more important. So when we talk about ethanol, biodiesel, biomethane, they all have a role to play, especially in the energy transition agenda and also the agenda of decarbonization. So they are central to some extent to these important agendas here in the country. Just a brief history about biofuels in Brazil. Of course, I will not go into much of the details, but as the ambassador already said, the Brazilian history of the biofuels started with the pro-alcohol program in the 1970s as a response to the oil crisis. So the idea here was to develop a biofuel to use the Brazilian agriculture as an asset, a strategic asset, to cope with the oil crisis, so energy security, and of course allow the population to have access to fuels with lower prices. But this has been developing over the last years. We started with ethanol, biodiesel, and now we have a large array of biofuels. This picture on the right side of the screen just shows you a little bit that production of biodiesel and also ethanol and biomethane, which is another biofuel I'll talk a lot about. They are record high over the last few years. So we've been not only keeping our production high, but expanding it over the last years. And today, biofuels, as I mentioned to you, are central to our country strategy for energy transition security, as well as to its effort to decarbonize its economy. This because agroenergy in general and biofuels in particular, I'll not have to show you more details about that because I'm sure you know about it. There are viable alternatives for promoting rapid energy transition, especially in the transport sector. And also, as biofuel emits less CO2 than fossil fuels, as verified through numerous life cycle assessments, biofuels are instrumental in decarbonizing the transport sector and to some extent the Brazilian economy. Brazil, over the last couple of years, realizing that potential, linked its policy for biofuel production with its climate policy. So we created a kind of a carbon market based on the emissions that are mitigated by the biofuel production and use in Brazil. So we linked the energy efficiency to environmental efficiency, creating the country's first carbon market. So that's basically the main scenario here in Brazil. We are producing a lot of ethanol, biodiesel, also bioelectricity with the cogeneration technologies, and also biomethane. Of course, this graphics not to scale, just to show you, but our expected scenario is that the production in the country expected to more than double in the next few years, as also new biofuels are expected to be introduced, like green hydrogen, renewable diesel, sustainable aviation fuels, biobunker for naval transportation, and other kinds of biofuels. So as the production of first generation biofuels are expecting to increase, and as new biofuels are expected to be introduced, mainly second generation biofuels and also advanced fuels, with a more sustainable biomass will be required. So the question is for us, how can we sustainably produce and supply more biomass to the energy sector? And of course, the answer lies in agriculture and research and development. The same miracle that we achieved in our agriculture to ensure food security is also going to have an effect on energy transition and energy security in the country. So the ambassador also said that the ethanol industry in Brazil is a global reference. We have a lot of plants producing ethanol in Brazil, using sugarcane mainly, but also in the last couple of years, maize and other cereals. So that's the Brazilian map. You see here the location of the plants that are used to produce ethanol. It's quite distant from the rainforest here, the Amazon. So the people are concerned about the expansion of the Brazilian agriculture and the biofuel programs in terms of how this could affect the Amazon forest in some way. But the reality is that we are using different areas, and of course the Amazon forest will be preserved because it has a strategic, it is a strategic asset to Brazil. The production of ethanol in Brazil is now 35 billion liters. Sorry, because this image is in Portuguese, but I can tell you which is it's being shown here. 30 billion liters is produced from sugarcane, and now 6 billion liters from ethanol coming from maize. So just increased a lot over the last few years, and the expectation is that maize will account for nearly half of the ethanol produced in Brazil in the next 5 years or so. But the sugarcane ethanol, of course, is the chief species here. So it accounts for, sugarcane itself accounts for 17, almost 18% of the nation energy production, and the production it's quite large for a single species, and it's produced, cultivated with great savings in chemical inputs, biological pests and everything. So sugarcane, ethanol, in terms of sugarcane, it's a very good in terms of and not only energy efficiency, but in terms of carbon footprint. So in terms of energetic balance, ethanol sugarcane is a lot better than other types of ethanol, and also helps to mitigate, reduce the CO2 emissions. Biodiesel, which I believe it's of particular interest to Indonesia, is also another biofuel that we have been developing over the last few years here in Brazil. We started with a 2% mandatory mixture, and we are now approaching 15% mixture. Mainly, it's produced from soybean oil and also cow fat that are used as the main feedstocks. And the reason for that is that we have to have scale of feedstock supply, and also we have to have logistics and technology. And when we look at the landscape of the Brazilian agriculture, soybeans, of course, it's a well technified crop. It has the scale that we needed, and also has the logistics to supply all of the plants. So, but we also starting to work into new potential biomasses for biofuel production, especially some native palms. I understand that in Indonesia and in other parts of the Asia, like Malaysia or other countries, oil palm is a big player. But in Brazil, we have a similar palm that's called the Macau palm, and also we're invested in canola as an alternative for oil supply. And Brazil has a lot of public policies that have boosted the biofuels over the last few years. I can tell you a little bit about the Renova Bio, which is the national policy for biofuels, and more recently, the Fuels of the Future law that just came into law. So the Renova Bio, which is the policy for biofuel production in Brazil, is that policy that linked energy efficiency with a climatic concept of it. So as much as we can produce energy saving or mitigating the emissions of CO2, the better. So it links to a carbon market. And also the Fuel of the Future policies that created a national program for renewable diesel, a national program for sustainable aviation fuels, a national program for biomethane production. It created a regulatory framework for carbon capture and storage. So we're doing a lot, not only in terms of agriculture technology, biofuel development, but also in terms of regulatory and policies. So of course, we are looking into the second generation fuels. Just an image here showing the first generation fuels used as resources, of course, sugarcane, oil palm, and maize and other products to produce biodiesel, bioethanol, and others. Second generation biofuels uses mainly lignocellulosic materials, so it's not the same feedstock that we are using in the first generation. And of course, second generation or cellulosic ethanol and Fischer-Tropsch diesel are coming to place here. And third generation use the algae. We are kind of focusing more on the second generation. So the first generation mainly is based on a fermentation that uses sugar. There are free sugar to produce ethanol. Mainly in a single reaction, we can produce 80 to 14% of ethanol. But of course, that's not the whole amount of sugar that we have available into the plants. There are a lot of sugars that are trapped, so to say, in the cell wall of the plant. So lignocellulosic materials, when used for second generation biofuel production, of course, then we have to have a pre-treatment technology, hydrolysis, or use gasification, so we can access those sugars. And so the idea here is to more than double the production of ethanol, for example, using second generation ethanol. Just a few ideas here. We have to work into pre-treatment, enzymatic hydrolysis, or advanced fermentation process. So this is kind of one of the focus here at Embrapa Agroenergy. And there are a lot of benefits for second generation fuels, well, especially the reduced impact on food security, since we are using residuals from plants or crops to produce biofuels, and also better utilization of those wastes that otherwise could be potential threat to the environment. And of course, as I'm showing you here in this image, the carbon emissions of CO2 or carbon emissions of second generation biofuels are better than the first generation. So when we think about using biofuels for energy transition, decarbonization, second generations are a great option to go. There are some kind of projects already in place here in Brazil. A lot of plants. Granbio has a plant that it's being operational for 10 years or so now. There are other plants in the region of São Paulo. And one of the largest fuel producers here in Brazil, which is called Raízen, is expanding its second generation operation. So they are committed to achieve 20 plants for second generation ethanol over the course of the next few years. They are already operating one plant, and they are constructing 3 other plants, and which the investment has already been approved. So Brazil is kind of accelerating its investments in second generation biofuels. Of course, there are some barriers, there are some challenges, especially in terms of technological advancements and scale-up challenges. We have to work better on the fermentation process of it, so deal with microbial contamination and other things. And of course, we have to develop a suitable pre-treatment technology that can be reproduced over different sites. And of course, the enzymes used for that are quite expensive. So we are here at Embrapa Agroenergy developing new enzymatic tools for second generation. And our perspective is to move from first to second generation, actually adding the second generation, while also looking into the third and fourth generations and how advanced biofuels can have a role here in Brazil. So this is another topic that I will briefly show. When we talk about advanced biofuels, we're talking about renewable diesel, biogas, biomethane, and also sustainable aviation fuels and green hydrogen. This all can be produced using agriculture as agricultural product as feedstock. Brazil has been expanding its biomethane production over the last few years. And of course, all of the increase that we expect for biomethane production in the next 5 years, 92% of the expected increase will come from agriculture, especially sugarcane mainly. So the technology involved here is mainly anaerobic biodigestion, which is the main technology that we're working on. And of course, when we talk about renewable diesel, which is a little bit chemically a little bit different than biodiesel, we have the opportunity to develop also sustainable aviation fuel using the same process. So it involves hydrogenation and also isomerization of the feedstock, but they're in line, so you can produce SAF and also diesel with a lot of efficiency. So Brazil is interested in pushing those two technologies. Of course, we can use oil crops to both produce green diesel and also SAF, but we also can use sugar from sugarcane or corn through a technology that has been called the alcohol-to-jet fuel. So SAF can be produced from a lot of feedstocks in the Brazilian agriculture. We have a project in place also to use ethanol and biomethane to produce renewable hydrogen or low carbon hydrogen. This new biofuel can be produced through steam reforming of both ethanol and methane. So we have a project in place here in Brazil, in the state of São Paulo, that is using ethanol to produce hydrogen. And of course, Brazil is looking into ways to go with the hybrid electrification, is to use ethanol as a way to power electric vehicles. And there is a lot of synergy between the biofuel production in Brazil and agriculture. This graph here just showed the potential for hydrogen production in Brazil. when you go to the coast side of the Brazil, it's mainly it will be produced based on water electricity. But when you go into the more deep into, to the country, it's going to use biogas and ethanol mainly. So for that, for those advanced fuels and also for second generation, residuals are the champions. The residuals are the main feedstock that are going to be used. And as the Brazilian agriculture is quite diverse and large, there's a sizable amount of residuals or leftovers to be used for advanced production in Brazil. Just in terms of SAF production, if all agricultural residuals is used to its full potential, we could potentially supply enough biomass to allow the expansion in Brazil, supplying 90% of the demand for jet fuel in the country. So, and of course, the ethanol itself, of course, it's a biofuel itself used directly into auto cycle motors, but it can also be used as an intermediary to other biofuels such as SAF through alcohol to jet, and also hydrogen through ethanol reforming. So increase the ethanol production is a way to increase the production of second generation fuels and also advanced fuels here in Brazil. And of course, this comes with a lot of market opportunities. Advanced biofuels, second generation fuels, SAF, hydrogen are all potential new markets for sugarcane in the Brazilian agriculture. So, of course, now just, I think I'm over my time, but just to finish here, biofuels are contributing to the climate efforts here in Brazil because CO2 biofuels emit less grams of CO2 equivalent in terms of energy. Here it's just a comparison. So biodiesel here emits about 18 grams of CO2 for each megajoule of energy, while the diesel itself 86. So every time that we push the production and use of biofuel, we are contributing to mitigate the emissions of CO2 in Brazil. So just through the utilization of biofuels in the last year, the country avoided the emissions of 86 million tons of CO2 equivalent, which is a quite large number. And of course, when you think about the sustainability of the agricultural operations, biomethane and also biodiesel is a viable alternative for decarbonizing agricultural operations. So new tractors models today can run on 100% biomethane with equal efficiency. And of course, we can push some circular bioeconomy models. As I mentioned to you, one of the great achievements of our agricultural transformation was the nitrogen fixation, which allows soybeans to be produced without the need to supply fertilizers. But other crops, this same technology is not quite so efficient. So we still have to supply the plants with nitrogen, but we have a way now to produce nitrogen using agriculture as its own feedstock. So we can produce ethanol and then use that ethanol to produce hydrogen and then green ammonia. That green ammonia will be used to produce fertilizers that will be applied into agriculture. So it's a great circular model. And of course, sugarcane and maize in Brazil are becoming from each year more of a biorefinery. So they are producing first and second generation ethanol, electricity, biogas, biomethane, and they will be used to produce hydrogen, SAF. So multiple bioproducts can be produced using agricultural feedstock. So given the similarities between Brazil and Indonesia, and I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to work on technology transfer and maybe joint R&D projects to strengthen bioenergy production in our countries. So I thank you with that for the attention. I'm sorry if I was a little bit over my time here, but I just wanted to show you a little bit, Ambassador, about what Brazil is doing in terms of agriculture and biofuel. And that's quite a lot. So I was not able to make a very short presentation because the size of the Brazilian effort in agriculture and biofuels, it's large. So the presentation became quite large. So I thank you for your patience. And I'm open to take any questions now or at the end of the webinar. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alexandre Alves. It was a remarkable presentation. Very interesting. I would like to know, I'd like hereby to ask whether you could share the presentation with the Science and Technology Office of the Embassy. It would be certainly very useful for our work there. Thank you very much.
I'll send it to you.
Thank you. Okay. Now, before we move on, I would once more like to remind the audience to save their place their questions for the Q&A at the chat area, because we have someone from the embassy compiling these questions to me so that I can have them submitted to the panelists at the end of this session. Now, I would like to hear from, give the floor to our second panelist, Mr. Oki Muraza, who's the Senior Vice President of Technology Innovation of PT Pertamina. Mr. Muraza will provide an overview of Indonesia's biofuel production innovation ecosystem, the transition to second-generation biofuels, and the future of biofuels in Indonesia. Mr. Muraza, please welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Lindolfo. I will try to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see it. I can see it very well.
Very good evening from Jakarta, ladies and gentlemen, and very good morning for our colleagues in Brazil. My name is Oki Muraza from Pertamina in Technology Innovation Division. I would like to greet the Excellency and also the distinguished speakers, Mr. Alexandre Alonso from Brazil Agriculture Research, Pak Edi Wibowo, our dear Director of Bioenergy in the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, His Excellency George Prata, Ambassador of Brazil in Jakarta, and of course Mr. Indolfo Kade Martori, the first secretary at the embassy. So I'm trying to compile some of our initiatives in bioenergy with regards to the mostly bio fuel, not the bioenergy for electricity. So let's start with the recent program from our government. As you can see that starting in October in 2024, we have a new government. And then with the new government, basically we have the 8 impact programs, or in Indonesia it's called Asta Cita programs. And basically you can see that we have Asta Cita number 2, which is encouraging national self-sufficiency through food and energy and also water. And then we have also the program number 5, which is around the downstreaming or processing of the feedstock for our industrializations. So these are some of the missions from the government, in which that we at the Pertamina, as a state-owned enterprise, we are trying to align with the Asta Cita mission. Then a bit about our company. Pertamina has the dual growth strategy, which will allow the company to strengthen the national energy security, while at the same time building the low carbon business in Indonesia. So we are working in the upstream oil and gas, a bit similar with Brazilian Petrobras, yeah. And then we have the also downstream refinery upgrading, refinery revamping, gas transmission and distributions, etc., etc. Then we are also building low carbon business, basically on the chemicals, on the biofuels. I'm going to highlight some of them in the next few minutes. And we are also having the low carbon business for the green hydrogens, CCS, CCUS. And last but not least, we have the natural-based solutions in order to support the bioenergy implementation. So as you can see that we have a number of enablers, and basically we are working on the technology and the innovations as the enablers, yeah, for the bioenergy development. A bit on the Pertamina achievement on sustainability. According to Sustainalytics, we are among the best company in integrated oil and gas company. And basically, as you can see, we are having good ranking, and we are trying to have better and better energy management and sustainability in Pertamina. Now we touch upon the energy mixture that we have in Indonesia. As you can see on this slide, basically we are kind of now self-sufficient for the gas oil after 35% blending of fatty acid methyl esters. And then for after, we are also secure self-sufficiency, while we have the opportunity to grow the biofuels, basically to reduce the gasoline import. As you can see on the slides, that basically almost 60% of the gasoline currently are being imported from different countries. So in order to create the economic spillover, etc., etc., we need to find a way to produce more ethanol blended gasoline in the country. How can we fulfill the requirement for the biofuels? We can see on these slides. So as already stated on the previous slide, we can see that 50% or 50 plus gasoline comes from the international market. And the challenge is how to reduce the fuel import by having the implementation of bioethanol with similar strategy like in Brazil, like in India, etc., etc., including our neighbors, Thailand and Philippines. We have a number of feedstock. I'm going to highlight some of them, including the molasses, which is the byproduct of sugarcane, sorghum, and empty fruit bunch, yeah, from the waste from our palm oil industry. Then I'm going to highlight also a bit about the sustainable efficient fuels and renewable diesels. As you can see that we need to find a way how to implement the sustainable efficient fuel ecosystems, while at the same time we try to secure the affordability of the jet fuel in Indonesia. So we are exploring different potential feedstocks, starting from palm oil to used cooking oil and also other non-edible oils. And finally, I'm going to highlight our initiatives on the renewable diesel or hydrogenated vegetable oil from different sources. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to highlight on the bioethanol and also some other biofuel development in Pertamina Group. So with the program from our governments in order to have stronger energy security and also stronger food security, we try to find the way to reduce the import of gasoline, and which is quite big, yeah, it's around 20 million kiloliter. And then also at the same time, we try to strengthen our food sector. It's good to see the presentations from Brazil, which highlighted the situation in the 1970 in Brazil. I think that's really motivating for us to set a strong target like Brazil. And then, of course, these initiatives will also help us to reach sustainability by reducing 100 tons of CO2 every year and reducing the emissions from the transportation sector. What are the challenges? You can see on the right side, the challenges at this moment is basically there is a gap, the price gap between the bioethanol with the fuel which is derived from our refinery. Yeah. So if we compare RON octane number 90 with the bioethanol, there is a gap on the price. So the challenge is how can we reduce the price by finding new feedstocks or by improving the efficiency, having the integrations, etc., etc. Now, we studied a number of feedstock. Yeah. So basically, the molasses at this moment, 100,000 tons of molasses are being exported to other countries. So with the proper regulatory frameworks, with the proper integrations, we need to be able to upgrade some of the bioethanol plant in Indonesia in order to produce more bioethanol from molasses. Basically, at this moment, we have only 40,000 kiloliter bioethanol from molasses. Then sorghum, I will highlight the importance of sorghum plantations in the next few slides. And then as a collaboration between Pertamina and the Ministry of Forestry, we also studying the Arenga Pinata or aren in Indonesia. And finally, we are studying with partners the possibility to have a second generation bioethanol plant from palm empty fruit bunch or EFB. Now, let me highlight a bit on the sorghum. As you may know that sorghum is one of the robust plant which can be planted in fertile area and also in the dry area. So we studied with the University of Mataram in Nusa Tenggara Barat, in which that basically we plant sorghum in fertile areas and also non-fertile areas, and we got both quite interesting results. And basically, the grains can be used either as sorghum rice or sorghum flour, and then the leaf can be utilized for animal feed, and the stem can be pressed, and we can get the sugar in which that we can apply fermentations and finally distillations and adsorptions in order to get fuel grade bioethanol. The beauty of this feedstock, basically, we are also getting a number of byproducts, including the organic fertilizers or finace, and some other potential byproducts. So we studied in Nusa Tenggara Barat, and now we are exploring larger scale in Java Island. We are still having discussion with a number of partners. Hopefully, we can have also the fermentations either in East Java or in Central Java. This is the showcases that we have in sorghum. Basically, we have pilot in area to obtain the productivity and then the yield of fermentations, etc., etc. And then we improve the bioethanol until we get the fuel grade. And then we have tested with the Toyota, flexi fuel Toyota in Jakarta in one of the international automobile air show in GIAS 2024. So this is, I think, quite interesting news from Jakarta. Then we have started the initial efforts basically to get the Pertamax Green 95, in which that now available in around 106 gas stations in West Java and also East Java. So this is having superior properties such as higher octane number, then the sulfur is low. And then we have the other benefits, including the accelerations, advantage for the environment, and it's also fulfilling the specification from our government, from Dirjen Migas. So at this moment, we are trying to scale up the sorghum plantations. Hopefully, in the next meeting at the end of this year, we can update to the same audience the result of the scale up for the sorghum ecosystems. Now, I'm going to touch upon the other biofuel development, including renewable diesel or HVO and sustainable aviation fuel. So basically, currently we are trying to build a number of grassroots green refinery, while before we can have this new green or biorefinery. We are trying to do co-processing with our current refinery, the conventional refinery, in which that we have the co-processing by mixing the bio-based feedstock with the conventional feedstock. And we get a good result basically when we are feeding 2.4% of renewable feedstock. It was the refined bleach and deodorized palm kernel oil combined with the treated C12 with kerosene in our hydrotreating unit. And then we got the SAF 2.4%, and then we already applied in the flight tests in 2021 and 2023. And we also tried to have the similar activities in which that we hope that we can expand this into other green refinery, not only in Cilacap, but also in other refinery, including Dumai and Balongan. This is the renewable diesel, which has the superior properties, including high cetan number. It's non-hygroscopic fuels, better oxidation stability, and having similar calorific value with the petroleum diesel. We have a number of implementations, including the passenger car road test for 50,000 kilometers, and then engine durability test for 1,000 hours, heavy duty equipments. We also try for ship, and we also implement it on the power generations. And a bit about our sustainable aviation fuel. Basically, we have the trial with the refined bleach and deodorized palm kernel oil. And then we also did the commercial flight tests with the commercial aircraft. And currently we are busy with basically preparing the implementation of used cooking oil with the catalyst that we use in Cilacap refinery in order to produce SAF. So we call it the UCO SAF program. Hopefully, we can start the ecosystems somewhere this year in 2025 by having a number of airline carriers, including Pelita, Garuda, and others. We are, of course, we do not stop with the used cooking oil, but we are also exploring a number of potential feedstock for our green refinery. As you can see on this slide, there are a number of potential feedstock. Each of them are unique, and each of them are basically potentially used as a CO2 sink. We have Pongamia pinnata or Malapari, and then we have the Calopilum inopilum or Nyamplung, and then we have Sterculi futida or Kepuh, and then we have Hevea brasiliensis or Karet, Jatropha curcas, and last but not least, we have the dried coconuts. So each of them are being studied, including the distributions of fatty acids, which mostly containing C16 to C18. And then basically we also try to collect the productivity per hectare, the years required for the planting, etc., etc. So basically, as a summary, we try to help our government in order to achieve the high economic growth expected to be 8% by having industrializations. And basically, the industrializations that we are aiming for the energy sectors, including the development of unconventional oil and gas, because we have good results on the unconventionals. And then we are also working on the enhanced oil recovery. So this year also we try to implement the surfactant flooding for enhanced oil recovery. This is for the classical oil and gas. While for the renewable feedstock for bioethanol, we are working on sorghum ecosystems, Arenga pinnata ecosystems, and also empty fruit bunch. And then for the circular economy, we are going to have soon the conversion of used cooking oil in our Cilacap refinery to have basically ecosystems for Bali airport. So hopefully if you are traveling to Bali by mid of this year, we hope that we can start showing you the implementation of used cooking oil as a feedstock for sustainable aviation fuel for Bali airport. And then these multi feedstocks are used in order to have downstreaming, which is one of the program that we have from our government. And then from this, basically, we can try to reduce the import of our fuels, especially the gasoline. So we are trying to improve the gasoline blend, and also we are trying to have the ecosystem for sustainable aviation fuel, starting with 2 to 3% this year in the Bali airport. So I think this is the report from our side. I would love to have discussions after this. And with this, I would thank you very much for your kind attention. I would like to return the floor to the organizer.
Hello. Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Muraza. I would like to ask you, it's very interesting, and I am confident that it will be very helpful for the labor of the embassy, especially not only the Science and Technology Office, but also the Trade Promotion Office. So if you would be so kind as to share the presentation with us, if this is possible, I would very much appreciate. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to, it's time to hear from our final speaker, Mr. Eddie Wibowo, the Director of Bioenergy at the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources of the Republic of Indonesia. Mr. Wibowo will be sharing his insights on Indonesia's biofuel development plans and the role of agriculture in bioenergy. Mr. Wibowo, thank you for being here with us tonight. The floor is yours, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lindolfo Antonio. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat malam. Good morning in Brazil. The Honorable His Excellency Mr. Jose Monteiro Prata, the Ambassador of Brazil to Indonesia, Alexandre Alonso from Embrapa Agroenergy, Brazilian Agriculture Research Corporation, Mr. Muraza, Senior Vice President, Technology Innovation, PT Pertamina Perseo, that has presented also the comprehensive progress of the bioenergy technology and feedstock development in Indonesia. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is a good pleasure and honor to be here today at this insightful webinar organized by the Science, Technology and Innovation sector of the Embassy of Brazil in Jakarta. I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to the organizer for bringing us together to discuss such a relevant and inspiring topic, the intersection between agriculture technology and biofuel development as seen through the lens of Brazil's remarkable agricultural transformation. Brazil's success in turning its agriculture into a global powerhouse while simultaneously advancing its biofuel sector serves as a valuable lesson for many nations, including Indonesia. The synergy between cutting-edge agricultural technology and sustainable biofuel production has not only enhanced food security and economic resilience, but also contribute significant to global energy transition effort. Without further ado, please allow me to begin with the presentation, which will focus on biofuel policy and program Indonesia. Slide 2 ya, Mas. I would like to begin my presentation by quoting President Wibowo's statement during his inauguration in October last year. He said that Indonesia will attain energy self-sufficiency by expanding biofuel utilization using our abundant domestic potential like palm oil, cassava, sago, corn, and others. He emphasizes that expanding biofuel utilization is essential for reducing fuel import and minimizing fossil fuel emission. Indonesia biofuel development policy is designed to achieve multiple strategic objectives. First, it aims to enhance energy independence and relations by reducing the reliance of fossil fuel import and utilizing domestically produced renewable energy source. Second, it serves as a key driver in promoting renewable energy, aligning with Indonesia's commitment to increasing the share of the sustainable energy in its national energy mix. Third, the policy support economic growth by stimulating the agricultural sector, creating jobs and encouraging investment in biofuel production infrastructure. Lastly, it plays a crucial role in meeting environmental targets, particularly in reducing greenhouse gas emission and supporting Indonesia net zero emission roadmap. Through this effort, Indonesia seeks to balance energy security, economic sustainability, and environmental responsibility. Our biofuel development next. Our biofuel development program consists of biofuel, bioethanol, bioabtur, green diesel, hydrotreated vegetable oil, green gasoline, and or plant-based gasoline. For biodiesel, which starts January this year, we have implemented B40 and are currently preparing for the B50 as has been mentioned on several occasions by our President, Mr. Prabowo Subianto. As for bioethanol, it is different from Brazil, which is pioneering for its bioethanol utilization. We have just restarting the bioethanol program through the implementation of the E5 market trial in June 2023, as mentioned by Mr. Oki. In 2023, Indonesia successfully conducted a test flight of flying test bed aircraft using G2.4 fuel, a jet fuel content 2.4% biofuel from palm kernel oil, and in 2023, the same G2.4 fuel is successfully tested on commercial aircraft. Another program is green diesel or HPO. Unlike conventional biodiesel, HPO is produced through the hydrogenation process and has superior properties, making it compatible with existing diesel engine without blending limitation. PT Kilang Pertamina International is currently constructing a large scale of HPO facility, which is expected to commerce in 2028 and 2023. Nevertheless, significant opportunity remain for investment in HPO plant in Indonesia. Apart from that, there is also green gasoline and palm-based gasoline, which currently is still being developed on a pilot scale. Indonesia biodiesel journey began in 2026 with a 2.5% biodiesel blend for the public service obligation PSO sector. Over time, biodiesel utilization gradually increased, but its larger scale implementation took off after the establishment of the Palm Oil Plantation Fund Management Agency or BPDPKS in 2015, which provided financial incentive for the biodiesel in the PSO sector, previously fully funded by the state budget. In September 2018, the government expanded the incentive program to cover all sectors, including both PSO and non-PSO. This policy accelerated biodiesel adoption, leading to the successful implementation of B30 in 2020 and a major milestone in Indonesia's renewable energy transition. Further development followed with B40 road tests conducted in 2022, the official implementation of B35 starting on February 2023, and most recently, the B40 program launched in January 2025 as part of Indonesia's continued commitment to increasing the biodiesel blending ratio. With over 18 years of successful implementation, Indonesia has established itself as a global leader in biodiesel utilization. Our country is now actively preparing to even higher blending ratio, reinforcing its position as a pioneer of sustainable biofuel development. In order to guarantee that the diesel engine performance is not negatively impacted by the biodiesel that is being used and can operate in sustainable manner, prior blending implementation, the government conduct technical assessment and has biodiesel specification handling and storage guideline, evaluate funding availability, and also ensure feedstock sustainability. Well, to support feedstock sustainability, effort will include expanding smallholder replanting program, utilizing ex-mining land for dedicated energy forests, promoting sustainable practice, improving crop yield, and diversifying not food feedstock. The use of palm oil for energy is carefully assessed by ensuring a balanced national CPO utilization, considering its role as Indonesia's largest foreign exchange earner. Export levy on palm oil and its derivative provide incentive for energy production, while strict environmental and sustainability regulation ensure responsible utilization. Additionally, government policy and regulation are in place to prioritize food security, preventing any disruption to domestic food supply while supporting Indonesia's renewable energy transition. For mandate expansion, the government is boosting biodiesel production capacity, particularly in central and eastern Indonesia, implementing Indonesia Bioenergy Sustainable Indicator or IPSI and increasing HPO production. As part of Astacita, a strategy program of our President Prabowo Subianto, energy self-sufficiency, the government is preparing the B50 specification and conducting technical testing in 2025 up to 2026, marking a major step toward Indonesia's long-term biodiesel strategy. Next, in contrast to the biodiesel program, the plan of bioethanol mandate has yet to be implemented due to high cost of feedstock, unsustainability feedstock due to low production capacity and conflict with non-fuel use, and no available incentive. With the spirit of restarting the bioethanol program in 2023, the government, Pertamina, and related parties conducted a technical test, which then followed with the market trial of E5. The sales indicate a good trend, which show that the product is well accepted by targeted consumer. To support the bioethanol program, the government has issued the Presidential Regulation number 40 to provide sustainable bioethanol feedstock by setting target of producing 1.2 million kiloliter molasses-based bioethanol by 2030. We also prepare the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources Regulation number 4 of 2025, which will provide the legal basis for the supply of the use of bioethanol, along with adjusting the bioethanol development target, taking into account of availability of domestic feedstock, infrastructure readiness, and equal treatment to all gasoline retailers. To meet this goal, in the short of medium term, the government plan to expand sugarcane plantation up to 700,000 hectares and provide 1.2 million kiloliter molasses-based bioethanol by 2030. In the long run, we will expand the sugarcane plantation about 1 million hectares in Merauke, West Papua. In addition, the government is encouraging existing plants that currently produce only industrial-grade ethanol to transition toward the production of fuel-grade ethanol. Next, the bus sugar and ethanol production, Indonesia plan to expand its sugarcane plantation from the current 90,000 hectares to an additional 700,000 hectares. Alongside this expansion, productivity is set to increase significantly from 62.5 tons per hectare in 2023 to 93 tons per hectare by 2030. The strategy aims to enhance domestic sugar supply, support the bioethanol program, and strengthen energy and food security while reducing reliance on import. From the proposal roadmap, bioethanol mandate will be focused on non-subsidized gasoline, will a blend ratio of 5% until 2028 and will further increase to 10% by 2029. Due to limited bioethanol production, the blending will take place partially. However, will production increase, E5 blending is scheduled to be distributed nationwide by 2028. And in 2030, if bioethanol is available as targeted of 1.2 million kiloliter, we can expect a significant surplus that can be used to enhance the blending ratio. To support bioethanol acceleration program, 11 additional bioethanol plants are required with the estimated investment of 1.3 billion US dollar. A significant milestone of biofuel began with the ATB and Pertamina team succeeded in making a catalyst which was then used to produce G2.4 fuel. It is a conventional after containing of 2.4% of biofuel which derived from the refined bleached and deodorized palm kernel oil, RBDPKO. The G2.4 fuel has successfully been tested both on test aircraft and commercial flight, as mentioned by Mr. Ogi. As an effort to support bioethanol development, the government and relevant stakeholders have developed a biofuel roadmap, which outline a plan to initiative of the 1% biofuel blending in 2027. However, current development are being assessed for the potential start in 2026, contingent upon production readiness and necessary infrastructure. Government will encourage biofuel production on industrial scale and will conduct a comprehensive study to diversify the feedstock, in particular that met CORSIA criteria such as UCO, non-standard coconut, palm kernel expirer, and also biomass. Ensuring biofuel sustainable record a comprehensive support system, including a strong policy framework that ensures long-term commitment to renewable energy, sustainable feedstock management, technical feasibility, and infrastructure development. Policy should create a massive market, promote feedstock sustainability through replanting program, feedstock diversification, and utilize critical and mining land for dedicated oil crop. Technical feasibility must be strengthened by conducting rigorous testing, establish standard and guidelines, and enhance R&D to improve production efficiency. Additionally, infrastructure improvement are essential to support a fuel distribution, blending facility, and refinery capacity, ensuring the reliable and scalable biofuel industry for Indonesia energy transition. Excellency, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen, as we reach the end of my presentation, I would like to express my sincere appreciation for the opportunity to share our journey in biofuel development. From the world speaker, it is evident that both Indonesia and Brazil share a strong commitment to advancing sustainable energy solutions, leveraging our vast natural resource and technological innovation to drive progress in the sector. Brazil's success in agricultural technology and biofuel development offer valuable insight that can complement Indonesia's initiative. We see great potential in deepening our collaboration, whether through knowledge sharing, joint research, and investment in biofuel infrastructure to strengthen not only our respective industry but also contribute contribute to the global energy transition. We look forward to continuing this dialogue and working together toward a more sustainable, resilient, and energy secure future. Terima kasih, arigato, obrigado. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wibowo, for your presentation. We learned a lot about the Indonesian policy on biofuel and its relation with agroenergy. I would ask you to, if possible, also to share your presentation with the embassy, because it will be very useful for us. We have reached the end of the speaking part of this session, and I have gathered here 3 questions. I have 3 questions from the audience. I will start with a question that is addressed to both Mr. Alexandre and Mr. Muraza. And the question is, how long will it take for sustainable biomass to be implemented in large industries, such as aviation or shipping, in Brazil and in Indonesia? I believe Mr. Alexandre answers for Brazil, and Mr. Muraza answers for Indonesia. And I believe I will read the questions first, and then after the list of questions, the speakers can proceed to answer them. The second question can actually be addressed to the 3 speakers. It's the following. As scientists, how do you encourage your respective governments to have political will towards implementing sustainable energy in all industries? And the third and final question is addressed to Mr. Wibowo. It asks whether you think, Mr. Wibowo, Indonesia will be successful in its efforts to go beyond B40. These are the questions that we have. If they are understood, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Muraza. If you could start with how long will it take for sustainable biomass to be implemented in large industries such as aviation and shipping? In your case, Indonesia. Please proceed if possible.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Lindolfo. Izin Pak Edi, Your Excellency, and distinguished speakers. So first, the first question is how long the biomass will be the source of our sustainable fuels, yeah, for instance, aviations. At this moment, we are conducting a number of projects in which that we are trying to utilize the biomass. The first project is from empty fruit bunch, EFB, to bioethanol. Basically, we have collaboration with the company in Europe, and then we got the yield. However, we are still discussing with a number of partners how can we develop the demo plan or demonstration plan in Indonesia for the EFB to bioethanol. And then the second studies that we have is from coconut shell. So basically the coconut shell is being converted to syngas, and then from syngas to methanol, and methanol via alcohol to jet to SAF. This is with the institution in Europe. The phase is still pilot project as well. And then the third project that we would like to report is basically the HEFA route that we have in our refinery co-processing. This is ready. Inshallah, this will be ready by this year. And we are going to have the first ecosystems based on the used cooking oil to SAF. So at this moment, it is still depend on the technology development on the empty fruit bunch to bioethanol, and similarly from coconut shell to SAF also is currently pilot project. Then the second questions on the advocacy to government. I think we meet with our government regularly. We have very strong relationship with our director, Pak Edi Wibowo, with our general director, Bu Enia, and etc. So basically, we are on the same board. So we are trying to have a number of ecosystems in which that our government is fully supportive. I think these are the our answer for these two questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think I'll take it from here. Answering the same two questions. Well, the first is for when biomass will be effectively used for SAF and biobucker production. During my presentation, I mentioned to you that Brazil just passed into law the Fuels of the Future, which is a new piece of legislation that actually created a new national program for sustainable aviation fuel production and use here in Brazil. So, of course, as the investor mentioned in the beginning of his talk, the ethanol program started in the 70s. The biodiesel program started 20 years ago. Actually, we are now commemorating 20 years of the program for biodiesel production. And the program for SAF production will start in 2 years from now, in 2027. So what the law just states is that Brazil needs to reduce the carbon emissions by the aviation sector by an order of 1% per year starting on 2027. So 2027, we will need to reduce 1% of the carbon emissions of the aviation, mainly by using SAF. And then 1% in 2022, reaching 10% of reductions in 2037. That means that we will have to mandatory use SAF in 2 years from now, and then increase gradually the use of this sustainable biofuel in order to achieve the reduced emissions that we want. This, of course, means that if the aviation sector in Brazil grows, the emissions will be need to be, in terms of absolute number, reduced in a greater way than if the sector doesn't grow that much, which means that the demand for SAF will pretty much depend on the emission of the sector and how the sector is growing. But we are estimating that by 2027, so it's 2 years from now, Brazil is going to need to produce 1.6 billion liters of sustainable aviation fuels just to meet these initial requirements. So I mentioned to you that Brazil is producing nowadays 35 billion liters of ethanol just to achieve the 1% reduction in 2027, Ambassador, and 2028. We're going to need to produce 1.6 billion liters of SAF. This will mainly come from a new project that we have underway in Brazil, is to use the Macau palm or Macaúba, which is a native palm, as the main feedstock for SAF production. So using the HEFA pathway technology. And Petrobras is also committed to producing sustainable aviation fuel through HEFA using soybean oil. And of course, Raízen, as I mentioned to you, is committed also to producing sustainable aviation fuel through using ethanol, so alcohol to jet fuel, as well as using oil palm. So we have a company here in Brazil that's called BBF that's going to use. So collectively, 1.6 billion liters of SAF, 1 billion coming from Macaúba in 2027. And then if you factor in 1% a year, we will need to produce 1.5 or a little bit more sustainable aviation fuels, billion of liters per year to achieve the reductions that we are committed with. of course, that needs a lot of investment, private investment. So I was looking here at some numbers while my colleague was talking. We have announced just for the sustainable aviation fuel here in Brazil, an investment of almost 20 billion reais, which I think it's going to be something close to $3 to $4 billion to develop the industry of sustainable aviation fuel. So it's not going to take that long. In 2 weeks from now, we're going to need to start the production. Talking now about biobanker or fuels for naval sector, that's probably going to take a little bit more time because the volumes that we're talking here are quite insane in terms of the number and the logistics. And of course, you have to work with drop-in fuels, so you don't want to change all the machinery and everything. So for naval transportation, I would not now guess a date for it, but it will not take that long also. For the second question, how do we support the Brazilian government and the parliament in those kind of agendas to put sustainable or biofuels in the agenda? Well, the fact is the Brazil, as the ambassador knows very well, is pushing a green agenda in the last couple of years. So Brazil is passing a lot of laws regarding biofuels and carbon markets and biodiversity. And so Embrapa, as a public company, we are demanded a lot to present the best data, to present the best models, to present the best analysis to support the new regulatory pieces that we have in the country. So we have a great relationship with the Brazilian government. We have also a very good relationship with the congressmen and the senators that are now discussing the law. So we are participating in a lot of public audiences to present our perspective. We're producing technical notes to support the Brazilian government through the Ministry of Agriculture and also Mines and Energy. And one thing that we also do a lot is this that we're doing here right now to support the efforts of the Brazilian international diplomacy. I myself have been in a couple of international missions, specifically with the aim to discuss biofuels and agriculture and bioenergy. So I think that we are more demanding than we're pushing them forwards, which I think it's great because that demonstrates the commitment of the country with this kind of agenda. And of course, for us as a public research company, it's one of our institutional objectives to support the Brazilian state in terms of new technology and knowledge. So I think this will remain so in the next couple of years. So I think it's a great time to be working with biofuels here in Brazil. I think my questions were these two, right? So.
Still mute.
We're not hearing you, Lindolfo.
Lindolfo, you're still muted.
Here, let me say, our next question, thank you for answering, Mr. Alexandre and Mr. Muraza. Our next question is for Mr. Wibowo. Mr. Wibowo, do you believe Indonesia will be successful with its efforts to go beyond B40?
Yes, Indonesia, I think, can successfully move beyond B40 by strengthening our policy framework, enhance feedstock sustainability, and advancing biofuel technology. This includes expanding feedstock short through replanting program, utilizing marginal and ex-mining land for dedicated oil crop, and promoting second-generation biofuel. Additionally, investment in research and development, infrastructure, in improvement and also technical testing will ensure vehicle bending compatibility with existing engine. Strong collaboration between government, industry, and academy, also media and association, as well as strategic partnership with global biofuel leaders like Brazil will further accelerate progress toward the B50 and beyond, reinforcing Indonesia positioning as a leader in sustainability and sustainable energy transition. And related the current day transformation toward energy. Currently, we are drafting the new renewable energy law, which initiated by our parliament. Through this proposal law, we are expanding our commitment through transitional toward energy transformation and support sustainability development with technological reliable, economical, feasible, and also politically acceptable. And we collaborate our all stakeholder. I think we can make a biofuel program in Indonesia will be we optimistic to implement it in this time and in the next future. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Wibowo. Thank you, Mr. Muraza. Thank you, Mr. Alexandre. I believe this concludes our Q&A session. And before closing this this webinar, I would like to give the floor to Ambassador Jorge Prata, because he will make some closing remarks to our webinar today.
Thank you, Lindolfo, and above all, I want to give my heartful thanks to all the panelists. What we can apprehend from all the presentations, which were very wide range and very complete, is that this is the theme of our webinar, agriculture technology and biofuel development, is of huge interest for both countries. So I encourage Brazil and Indonesia to establish a dialogue and try to find ways of cooperating in this area. Cooperation can be good for both sides as long as we bear in mind that it's a two-way street. We both have to learn from each other. And also from procedural point of view, from my experience here, what I would also say is that we have to narrow our focus, because you see there's so many areas of cooperation in this field that we have to choose one, two, or a few where we can discuss and where we can talk more. And I also like to say that here we at the embassy are ready to assist you in establish this dialogue, and we encourage you to keep talking. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. This concludes our webinar tonight. I would like to tell you that the certificates of participation will be emailed to the participants in the coming days. Thank you again, Mr. Alexandre, Alonso. Thank you, Mr. Muraza. Thank you, Mr. Wibowo. Thank you very much. Thank you for all the participants, all the attendants. Thank you, Ambassador, everybody.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.